Your back hurts. Not the kind of hurt that comes from sleeping wrong or lifting something heavy. This hurt has been there for months, maybe years. A chronic ache that settles deep in your muscles, that tightens your shoulders, that lives between your shoulder blades like a stone. You've seen doctors. They've run tests. They've found nothing. The scans come back clean, the x-rays show healthy tissue, and you're left with the unspoken suggestion that maybe, just maybe, you're imagining it. But you're not. You're experiencing something profound and real. Your body is keeping the score. This is the invisible injury of trauma. Not the kind stored in memory banks where you can access it, analyze it, put words to it. This is trauma that bypasses your verbal mind entirely and lodges itself in your tissues, your nervous system, the very cells of your body. It's stored as chronic tension, unexplained pain, gastrointestinal distress, autoimmune disorders, fatigue that no amount of sleep can touch. And here's the thing that makes this so confusing, so maddening. You might not even remember why. The traumatic experience that your body is holding might have happened when you were too young for words. Might have been something you dissociated from, might have felt like everyday reality at the time. But your body remembers. Your body always remembers. The phrase, "the body keeps the score," popularized by trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk, refers to a simple but profound truth. Trauma is stored in somatic memory and expressed as changes in the biological stress response. While your conscious mind might move on, might rationalize, might convince itself that you're fine, your body continues maintaining the defensive patterns it created during moments of overwhelming threat. These aren't psychological phenomena masquerading as physical symptoms. These are genuine biological alterations in how your nervous system functions, how your muscles hold tension, how your organs respond to stress. To understand somatic trauma, you need to understand the difference between explicit and implicit memory. Explicit memories are the ones you can recall voluntarily, the stories you can tell about your past. Implicit memories are different. They're encoded at a sensory and motor level, stored as physical sensations, emotional states, and automatic responses. When traumatic experiences occur, particularly during childhood or moments of overwhelming stress, they often bypass the brain regions responsible for creating narrative memory. The hippocampus, which timestamps and contextualizes events, can go offline during trauma. The prefrontal cortex, which processes experience into coherent stories, shuts down. But the amygdala, your threat detection system, remains hyperactive, recording the experience at a visceral level. What gets encoded instead is a body map of the trauma. The sensations, the positions you held, the muscles you tensed, the ways you tried to protect yourself or couldn't. These become frozen in your neuromuscular system. Research has identified that traumatic stress dysregulates brain regions involved in somatosensory processing, particularly the insula, which creates your felt sense of your body from the inside. The posterior cingulate cortex, involved in bodily self-awareness, shows altered activity. Even the periaqueductal gray, a brainstem structure that mediates pain and defensive responses, changes how it functions after trauma. The vagus nerve, the main component of your parasympathetic nervous system, plays a crucial role in this story. Running from your brainstem to your gut, the vagus nerve connects your brain to virtually every major organ. It mediates your heart rate, digestion, immune response, and crucially, your sense of safety or danger. Polyvagal theory, developed by Stephen Porges, describes how the vagus nerve operates through 3 hierarchical systems. The newest evolutionary development, the ventral vagal complex, supports social engagement in calm states. When you feel safe, this system is active. Your heart rate is regulated. Your breathing is easy. You can connect with others. But when safety disappears and threat enters, your nervous system moves down the hierarchy. First comes sympathetic activation, fight or flight. Your heart races, muscles tense, energy mobilizes for action. But if fighting doesn't work, if fleeing isn't possible, if you're a child facing an adult or anyone trapped in an inescapable situation, your nervous system has one more option. The dorsal vagal system, the most primitive branch, initiates shutdown. Freeze, immobilization, your heart rate drops, blood pressure falls, you go numb, disconnected, frozen. This is the response that animals use when caught by a predator, playing dead in the hopes the threat will pass. Here's where somatic trauma gets encoded. When you can't fight and can't flee, when the stress response activates but has nowhere to go, that mobilized energy gets trapped in your body. Peter Levine, developer of somatic experiencing therapy, describes trauma as incomplete survival responses. Imagine an animal being chased by a predator. If it escapes, it will literally shake off the stress, trembling to discharge the massive activation of its nervous system. But humans in traumatic situations often can't complete these cycles. We freeze and stay frozen. We hold our breath and never fully exhale. We tense our muscles for defense, but never get to strike or run. And that held energy, that incomplete response, becomes chronic patterns stored in the body. The physical manifestations are extensive and well documented. Trauma survivors experience chronic muscular tension, particularly in the neck, shoulders, jaw, and pelvic floor. These are the areas that brace against threat, that held you rigid when you needed to disappear or protect yourself. Chronic pain disorders show striking correlations with childhood adversity. Research analyzing over 800,000 adults found that exposure to adverse childhood experiences significantly increases the likelihood of chronic pain in adulthood. The relationship is dose-dependent. One adverse experience increases risk, but 4 or more nearly triples it. The most strongly associated adverse childhood experiences with chronic pain include physical abuse, but also financial instability, living with mentally ill adults, and witnessing violence. The study found that among children exposed to one or more adverse experiences, chronic pain rates were 8.7% compared to 4.8% in children with no reported adversity. And this isn't just correlation. The biological mechanisms are increasingly understood. Chronic childhood stress creates allostatic overload, where repeated activation of the stress response system leads to excessive release of cortisol and other stress hormones, maladaptive activation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and ultimately physical complications including inflammation, cardiovascular problems, and metabolic disruptions. Gastrointestinal issues are another common manifestation. The gut has its own nervous system, the enteric nervous system, which is intimately connected to the brain through the vagus nerve. This gut-brain axis means emotional states directly affect digestive function. Trauma survivors frequently report irritable bowel syndrome, stomach pain, nausea, or other digestive problems that seem to have no clear physical cause. The connection is mysterious when you understand that your gut is responding to signals from a nervous system that remains in a state of threat. Autoimmune disorders also show elevated rates among those with trauma histories. When your body exists in chronic stress, your immune system becomes dysregulated. It might attack your own tissues, creating conditions like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, or inflammatory disorders. The cellular mechanisms extend even beyond neurons. Recent research has demonstrated that even non-neural human cells show memory consolidation effects, suggesting trauma's impact reaches the cellular level throughout the body. But perhaps the most profound aspect of somatic trauma is this: it often exists below conscious awareness. You might have no idea your body is holding trauma. You walk around with This is why childhood trauma is particularly impactful. Your brain and nervous system were still developing. The experiences that shaped you occurred during critical periods when neural pathways were being established. Research on adverse childhood experiences reveals that aberrant somatic sensory integration correlated with insecure attachment patterns sets the stage for later dysfunction. When caregivers don't provide safety, when the environment is unpredictable or threatening, a child's developing nervous system adapts. But those adaptations, brilliant for survival in a dangerous environment, become maladaptive in adulthood when the danger is past, but the body hasn't received that memo. The vestibular and somatosensory systems, which tell you how your physical body exists in space, develop first in human neurobiology. They're phylogenetically and ontogenetically primary, meaning they evolved first and developed first. These systems integrate at brainstem levels, the most primitive part of your brain. When trauma impacts these foundational sensory processing systems during development, it affects everything built on top: emotional regulation, sense of self, capacity for social connection. The somatic sensory systems give rise to your general experience of having a physical body while preserving its safety. They're highly sensitive to early life experiences and form the foundation for all higher level functioning. So, why does your body keep the score when your mind wants to move on? Because healing trauma isn't primarily about cognitive understanding. You can intellectually know that the trauma is over, that you're safe now, that what happened wasn't your fault. You can spend years in talk therapy building narratives and insights. But if your nervous system is still operating from a place of threat, if your body is still holding the defensive postures and incomplete responses, cognitive awareness alone won't release it. This is why somatic therapies have become essential in trauma treatment. Somatic experiencing, developed by Peter Levine, focuses on tracking bodily sensations and completing those interrupted survival responses. The therapy helps discharge the trapped energy through gentle, titrated methods. Pendulation involves moving between states of activation and calm, teaching the nervous system it can experience distress and return to safety. Titration means introducing small, manageable amounts of traumatic material so you're never overwhelmed. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, works partly through bilateral stimulation that helps integrate traumatic memories by engaging both hemispheres of the brain while processing somatic sensations. Trauma-sensitive yoga gives people tools to reconnect with their bodies in gentle, empowering ways. Somatic psychotherapy approaches like sensor-motor psychotherapy focus on body-based interventions to access and process trauma held below conscious awareness. The goal across all these modalities is the same: restore the connection between mind and body, complete the incomplete responses, teach the nervous system it can move from states of defense back to states of connection and safety. Body scans, where you slowly bring attention to each part of your body, help build awareness of where you're holding tension or numbing sensation. Breathwork can directly influence your autonomic nervous system, activating the ventral vagal pathways that support calm and connection. Controlled breathing exercises signal safety to your body at the most fundamental level. Movement practices that emphasize present moment body awareness help rebuild the felt sense of safety in your physical form. The therapeutic relationship itself becomes crucial. According to polyvagal theory, social engagement and co-regulation, experiencing safety in the presence of another person, can help shift your nervous system out of defensive states. When a therapist provides consistent, attuned presence, your nervous system begins to learn that connection doesn't equal danger, that you can be seen and remain safe, that vulnerability doesn't have to end in abandonment or harm. But healing somatic trauma isn't quick. Your body learned these patterns over time, often over years of adaptation to threat. Releasing them requires patience, gentleness, and respect for the wisdom your body showed in protecting you. The tension that annoys you, the pain that frustrates you, the numbing that confuses you. These were your body as best attempts to keep you alive and functioning when circumstances were overwhelming. Your body wasn't failing you. It was saving you. The invitation now is to begin listening, not with your thinking mind that wants to analyze and fix, but with compassionate attention to what your body is trying to tell you. That chronic pain in your shoulders might be carrying the weight of responsibilities you took on too young. That tension in your jaw might be holding words you couldn't safely speak. That knot in your stomach might be unprocessed fear that never had permission to be felt and released. Your body keeps the score not as punishment, but as testimony. It's holding the truth of your experience, the reality that your conscious mind might have had to minimize or forget. And in that holding is also the path to healing. Because when you can finally turn toward your body with curiosity instead of judgment, when you can feel those sensations without needing to immediately make them stop, when you can allow the trembling or tears or rage that wants to move through you, something shifts. The frozen energy begins to thaw. The incomplete responses find their completion. The nervous system, so long stuck in defense, begins to remember it can also rest. This isn't about thinking your way to healing. It's about feeling your way home. It's about recognizing that your body isn't the enemy. It's been the loyal guardian. And now, finally, you can thank it for keeping you alive and gently. Gradually teach it that survival mode is no longer necessary. That it's safe now to soften, to release, to come back to life not as a defended fortress, but as a feeling, breathing, embodied human being who can finally be here. Now, whole,